Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be going through everything that's known so far about the Xbox 720. Now, there are tons of rumours available at the moment, and so how much of this is actually going to come true, it remains to be seen, but it's likely we're going to at least get a fair handle on it by probably E3 next year, which obviously happens in June. So there's also Microsoft's annual X showcase, which happens in February of March, of course, next year. So it's likely by at least June time, a lot of the stuff is going to be decided upon. Anyway, or at least confirmed. Anyway, Microsoft Durango, as it's currently known as in development kit circles, is going to be a monster, apparently. It was pretty much rumoured now that the system is going to have 4 hardware cores, and each of those hardware cores is going to have 4 logical cores on it. Now, as far as I can find out, I have done a lot of Googling, and I can't actually find the actual clock speeds of what they're going to be. I have looked at 1 or 2 sites, and they've basically reported that a hacker has, revealed what the specification of those chips is going to be, and he's saying 1.6 gigahertz. Take that with a massive truckload of salt, is basically what it comes down to. It could turn out to be 100% accurate, or it could turn out to be really, really inaccurate. So I'm not going to mention what the CPU speeds are going to be or anything like that. It's also not exactly known what the throughput of those cores are going to be. As far as I understand, I've researched quite a bit and I can't find it. Obviously that could change in the next 2 minutes after I put this video up, because obviously this stuff can change. What is known, however, is that it's going to be significantly faster, and I'm sure that's fairly obvious to anyone, than the current systems as they are right now, which is obviously a really good thing. Now, back in late 2011, December, the tech article site Fuzzilla said that IBM and Global Foundries were basically working together, and basically is going to be a power PC CPU married up with an ATI Southern Island GPU, which is basically a modified ATI 7000 series, which is a pretty good system to say the least. Other people are saying in terms of the graphics systems that it's basically going to be like having 2 PCs taped together. What that exactly means is unclear, as you can imagine, but there could be a few options for this. It could be similar to, say, a Crossfire setup, but they're saying that's not quite the case. It could also be something more like that each of the chips is rendering a different angle, for example, on a 3D output, which is possible, as many of you may know if you happen to own multiple graphics cards or you're into the tech at all. Basically, SLI or Crossfire, which are pretty much the same thing. It's you, for example, put 2 graphics cards in your system, let's just say 2 NVIDIA cards, for example, and those 2 cards will pretty much do AFR, alternate frame rendering. So, say for example, it has to draw a cup, and say in the next frame that cup moves a little bit, then graphics card A will draw the cup, and then graphics card B will draw the cup. It's not like both are drawing that one cup simultaneously. This is quite important to note because it's also one of the reasons that, for example, let's say you have 1 GB of RAM on your graphics card, which isn't much in today's world, but let's say you did, and let's say you marred it up with another graphics card with the same type. So let's say, for example, you have 2 graphics cards, 1 GB of RAM each. That doesn't mean that you have 2 gigs. This is somewhat off topic from what the whole thing is, and I don't want to get too much into this because obviously a lot of that is speculation. It is worth noting, however, that let's say the Xbox 360, it's been around for what, about 7 years now. It was released, obviously, specification-wise, back in 2005 it was revealed, and when it was revealed it was actually pretty damn powerful. I went on record then, although RGT wasn't going on, I said to many people that I wasn't happy with the amount of RAM that the system has. The system, as you guys may know, uses unified RAM. So basically, graphics card and CPU basically share the memory, and there is a frame buffer specifically for the graphics card, which is fantastic and all. Although it's fairly small, I'm not quite sure what it is offhand. Memory is a bit fuzzy today, to be honest. I didn't sleep that well, but I believe it's around 8 to 12 megabytes. It's not, you know, nothing or anything, but it's not exactly gonna make or break something. Although it's very fast RAM, so obviously it's there for frame buffering. Anyway, what I did say is that I would have preferred to have seen around 768 to maybe a gigabyte of RAM. And I also went on record, although it wasn't particularly popular among some of you, that I wasn't really 100% happy with Nintendo's specifications with the Wii U. And that isn't necessarily a mar on the console. I also said similar for the original Wii, and I ended up buying the original Wii, might I add. I wish that Nintendo had gone a little bit further with the specifications. Let's say, I'm not 100% exactly sure how much more powerful, or what the scope is compared to the Xbox 360 and PS3. But even if you say it's 25% or 50% faster than those consoles, it's not going to be as fast as, say, the Xbox 720 and PS4. And I would have liked to have seen maybe Nintendo delay that a little bit more, maybe delay the release a little bit more, since the Wii was selling still reasonable, and of course they have the handheld market, and I wish they'd have instead made the Wii U a little bit more powerful still. But that's just my own personal opinion, of course. It's not reflective of anything, and, I'm sure the Wii U will still be a very successful and good console. Now, it's worth noting that I mentioned all of this. Let's say it does have the 16 cores of CPU power. What does that actually mean? What does it actually mean for us? Well, many things actually. In terms of gaming, there's many things that actually draw away a lot of power from, rendering just the graphics. One of those is physics. You may not think it, but say cloth moving or say a leaf blowing in the wind can require, depending on the complexity of it and just how much fluid dynamics or what have you is actually in the scene, can result in quite a lot of stress on the CPU. If you guys are wondering what I exactly mean, well, take for example, you're playing Doom 15, just for example, and let's say Doom 15 has a wall, and you're shooting at that wall with a machine gun. Okay, first of all, the machine gun is actually obviously hitting the wall, which is causing damage to that wall, right? Not only does it have to calculate, okay, these are where the bullets are going, this is, the bullet pattern, but let's say, for example, there's a pane of glass in that wall, and that pane of glass shatters. It, for example, might take 2 or 3 bullets for that glass to shatter correctly. Now, in older games, you guys can see this, that you'll notice that a pane of glass shatters and that's it. But in some of the games now, especially, you'll notice that basically bullet marks will start happening and pieces will start flying off, and eventually that pane will shatter and collapse in on itself. Obviously, the more physical power that the CPU has, the more that these developers can push this. And the same thing goes for other things, such as artificial intelligence. AI is actually a really, really big thing, especially, for example, if you have a squad of goons. One of the things that could, for example, allow them to act more independently would be more CPU power. That isn't to say that it's the biggest tax, but if you have 50 guys on screen at once, it's definitely going to be coming up there. By no means am I an AI expert, however, but other things such as, for example, character models, sound, 3D, if you guys are unsure about that. Obviously, 3D is now becoming a bigger part of things, but mostly it's to do with actually rendering stuff on screen and where something is, as well as the operating system itself. Don't forget, the more complicated the operating system is, the more CPU power that's actually going to take as well. And all of this, of course, is also going to the graphics cards in terms of high resolution. So if you guys are unfamiliar exactly what I mean, I would highly encourage you guys to check out an article from Eurogamer, which is basically showing the differences between Call of Duty Black Ops 2 and on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. And what you'll notice is basically developers improved the PS3 version compared to the original Black Ops. They basically got more out of the PS3. But it's worth noting that it still fell behind basically what the Xbox 360 could do, and that's just obviously the mileage of each individual developer and programmer is different. But basically what I'm saying to you guys is that you'll notice that none of those, or either of those systems should I say, is actually natively running in 720p, which is obviously 1280 by 720. Indeed, I believe it was something like 600p for the Xbox 360 version. That one of the reasons for that is simply obviously CPU power and GPU power just weren't there to constantly upgrade the game's visuals in terms of the details, the size of the levels, the moving grass, the character models, all of that, and render that in a high resolution. As if, let's say for example, you're a PC gamer, as you may know, if you were to say run your game in, let's say 480, 640 by 480 or something like that, it's basically not even straining your graphics card unless you have a really, really bad one. It's pretty much not putting any strain on the graphics card at all. On the other hand, if you were to render in say 1080p or above, that's definitely going to hammer the graphics card and the memory subsystem and everything else, particularly if you're putting say anti-aliasing on that as well. Apparently as well, there's leaked documents that are saying about the augmented reality for the Xbox 720, which sounds pretty cool in theory. It would involve 3D glasses, that type of thing, but this won't come around until 2014. It's basically a new peripheral. That means it's likely it won't be released alongside the console. Personally, I'm guessing, and this is a pure guess, this has been based upon any speculation or anything like that from the industry. This is just my personal guess, that let's say for example this is revealed in February to March time, then we could possibly be seeing it in your Christmas stocking basically for that year, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. The other thing as well is 3D sound. It's all well and good to have awesome 3D visuals, but obviously if we've not got the sound to back it up, then there's absolutely no point. Now another thing as well that I'm going to say right this second is as well, Blu-ray's basically been confirmed. I would say that if there was any major concern I have with the original Xbox 360 when it was being launched, I was worried about the absence of Blu-ray. One of the reasons for that obviously is Blu-ray just holds so much more data. And obviously certain games went over to 3-4 discs, which is similar to what we saw on even the PS1 back in the day. If you guys remember, say Final Fantasy VII or even 8, I mean 7 wasn't released that much later after the PS1 was released, to be honest with you, and yet of course it went over multiple discs, same as Metal Gear Solid and so on and so on and so on. It's also worth noting that a few major gaming developers, the executives of which have said and gone on record that one of the things that's actually really holding back gaming at the moment is actually internet services. I obviously live in the UK, and the average speed here varies between location, but how it basically works is obviously if you live in a more rural area, you're going to have a lot different connection. So obviously someone in say a farming area is likely going to have a lot slower connection than someone who's in a city. I, for example, live in a city, and so I have access to 100 megabit connection. Indeed, that's being upgraded to 120, and very soon after that, that goes up to 200, and apparently, if from what I've been told is true, we're actually going to be seeing 300 megabit connections in a not too distant future, which is obviously going to be absolutely insane. there's also a very good possibility that DirectX 11 will be on the system. Now, it's worth noting that the system looks amazing because of DirectX 11. I'm not going to go into what exactly DX11 does and what it has over, say, DX10 or DX9 or DX8 and so forth, because this video would turn into an absolute shootering. It's already gone to 15 minutes already. But what I will say is, basically, DirectX 11 is very impressive. And as far as I'm aware, I wouldn't be surprised, I have no evidence of this, but I wouldn't be surprised, pure speculation, if maybe DX12 was announced at the very least that they're working on it with the Xbox 720. It would really tie in with the whole thing, but I doubt it. One of the reasons is, obviously, if it's using the 7000 series, that likely doesn't have DX12 subroutines in it. There is obviously the possibility that ATI have, or should I say AMD, have changed this around a little bit, but still, this is just pure speculation. Would I like to see DX12? I'm not necessarily sure we need it at the moment, is what it comes down to. I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft are quietly beavering away at it, but there you have it. So what about controls? Are we going to be seeing a different controller? There's not really any evidence of this at the moment. Most people are quite happy actually with the Xbox 360 controller, as far as I'm aware. Sure, it has a few issues, most notably the D-pad, although they were somewhat resolved. They're still not ideal for fighting game fans, but most fighting game fans are either going to buy a dedicated controller or they're going to buy a stick. Anyway, I don't mind the Wii U controller. I think it's actually quite a cool idea, actually, in many ways. Although I think it's a little bit too big for my personal tastes. That's just me personally. Other stuff like cloud gaming and so on, I have no doubt that we're probably going to be seeing something along the lines of it. There's a good chance that we're going to be seeing something similar. Now, you guys remember the cloud gaming on live, which promised quite a few big things. It was actually quite brave. I personally didn't really like it, in terms of, I don't think we were quite ready for it yet. But Microsoft didn't end up purchasing it, which was a surprise to many in the industry. But what they did do was basically grabbing a few of the key staff members. Is pretty much what happened. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, we're going to likely be seeing new and improved versions of Xbox Live, which is obviously good, and no doubt a bigger hard drive. Personally, what I am hoping for, I've mentioned this a long time ago, but I'd really like to see a new and improved policy for Microsoft regarding the hard drive, actually. I really liked the fact that the PS3 basically just came with the hard drive off the bat. And although the PS3 didn't do everything right, I think it really did with this one particular thing. I think the lack of the hard drive really did hurt the Xbox 360 in some aspects. And I definitely think that it's going to be a big thing if they were to include that as a standard. I don't know necessarily if it'll be an SSD. It might be a mechanical drive, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's an SSD because it's just a lot faster. Obviously, I don't necessarily know if it'll be flash memory though. So anyway, there's going to be tons of other stuff as well. Obviously, we're going to be seeing a lot more expansion with, say, multimedia, filming, that kind of thing. In the UK alone, we've got like 3 or 4 now, I'm not sure. Streaming services including Netflix, Love Film and Sky service as well, which is improving. I have done coverage on this before, but basically, obviously, the whole point of the matter is that DVDs are becoming more and more difficult to just keep shifting for many people. And so, for the point of many of us, I haven't bought a DVD in a while, is what it comes down to. I'll be honest, I haven't bought a DVD or a Blu Ray in a while. I have a few Blu Rays and that's it. And one of the key reasons for that is I just either go to the cinema if I'm really hyped about a film, or I'll just, well, buy it or stream it from the internet. And I've got Netflix, and that's it. Or, you know, I've got all the services, to be honest with you. And, you know, that's it. I'll just watch those suckers, and I, you know, find it easier and quicker and just simpler. And I agree that not all of the streaming services are perfect at the moment, but they are improving a lot. And obviously with faster connections, just like I was saying about the gaming, all of this is going to improve. So yeah, I definitely am very excited actually about the Xbox 720. I was actually a huge Xbox 360 fan when it first launched, and there were many reasons for this. I really did like it, and although I owned a reasonably good PC for the time, this is back before I went to NVIDIA. I owned a what was it, something like 2 or 4 gigs of RAM, I don't really remember now. Quad-core CPU, I think it was the Q6600, and I think it was the... oh, actually, no, that was before that even. What did I own? Yes, I remember the E4300, 2 gigs of RAM, and then the ATI 4850, I think, if I remember correctly. And then I upgraded a little bit to the GTS 640. Anyway, I'm going on a complete tangent there, memories. Anyway, what I'm basically saying to you guys is the Xbox 360 really did kick butt, and it introduced quite a few really cool concepts into the whole situation. So what I'm hoping is basically what I'm saying to you guys is that I'm really hoping that similar is basically featured here. I'm really hoping the Xbox 720 is a game changer. I'm hoping that it helps to push technology forward. I primarily, as you guys know, are and will always be a PC channel, because I really like PC technology and I really like how open it is. But that isn't to say that I don't want console technology to push forward, and one of the primary reasons for that is, like it or lump it, we as a gaming society are all in this together, and slow, you know, poor specification consoles definitely will have an impact with us. Obviously, the more unified everything is, the better for all of us. Anyway, I think I've completely gone on a tangent with some of this stuff. This rant has turned into a lot longer than I originally anticipated, so I can only apologise for that. But I've gone into some of my hopes, what is known about the system so far, and just a complete wild fantasy and speculation. So, anyway, I'll start again. If you guys leave a comment on what you actually want from the Xbox 720, and indeed the PS4 for that matter, and also what you would really like for Microsoft and Sony to sort out this time. In other words, what were your pet peeves with the previous generation of consoles and what you want resolved? Anyway, I think that's a good place to call the video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I'll see you around soon enough. Apologise for any rambling. As I said, really slept badly last night. I had like 5 hours or something, which is not conducive to being particularly well understood. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. Hope you've enjoyed the video, even though it was a bit rambly, than normal. So, bye.